3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to Kirby Nation, the podcast of the Kirby Wilbur Show. It's time to talk tech with Tony. Tony North from our IT department, who just sits about 50 feet from my desk.
That's
we
right.
Get together once a week and talk about tech issues. Try to put them in layman's terms so you understand AI and Fitbit and what's going on in the world. Tony, how are you?
I'm doing great, Kirby. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I understand your birthday's coming up. Happy birthday. Let's get that out of the way before we get to the serious stuff, all right?
Thank you, Kirby.
Yeah,
Dang
37. Jeez, I remember.
That's right.
Those
I
wish I was there.
Those are wonderful numbers that I really hope to have as much as possible.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, they're in your rearview mirror, buddy, just like they're in my rearview mirror.
They are.
We got a couple stories to talk about. One, this fascinating story I found that we talked about a murder case that was solved because of AI.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. I love stuff like that
Yeah.
because, we tend to talk about cybersecurity stuff a lot. And when we talk about it, we're always talking about, hey, the dark web or, things that, don't go the right way. And in this case, this is actually an example of how technology can be used in a positive way. This lady was brutally murdered, and that's the sad part about this. Her name is Karen. She's quite a lovely lady from San Jose, my hometown, San Jose, California.
Okay.
And basically, she was one of those ladies. She called herself a loner. She was fine without, she was fine being single. So she took care of herself a lot. She had a lot of friends. But in this example, her friend who had tried to reach out to her, she normally shows up at these normal times. That's what we see is a schedule. She's about 67 years old, 67. So she had a schedule for everything she did. She worked at a local pharmacy. And when she didn't show up for work one day, which, Karen never doesn't show up for work. Her friend came over afterwards, after work ended, and went to her house and, knocked on the door and saw her car there. And then she was like, what's going on? And so she broke into the house. There was a way that she could get in. And once she got in there, she found that Karen had passed away, and not just passed away, had been murdered. She didn't know how, and she wasn't sure if she was murdered, but this is what she found. She found Karen slumped over in a chair at her table in the kitchen with a knife in her hand and her throat, lacerated.
So like a suicide, like she slashed her own
Like she'd slashed her own throat.
And then killed herself, okay?
And killed herself. And by the way, all of that worked out that way in that plan. For instance, she called the ambulance. The ambulance came, picked her up. They, put her in the ambulance. They found that she was, passed away. So they, did the bag, right, that they normally do. And then they took her to the morgue once they got to the hospital. All the steps that are normally taken. And then the people in the morgue wanted to do a little bit of an autopsy, making sure that this is exactly what was found. And as soon as they unzipped the bag, they realized that Karen had a Fitbit. Something that a lot of people have, but, you would never think that it could help us in this instance. But this is how it did help us. So as the Fitbit was working and the coroner noticed it was working, they said, well, things don't exactly match up with the slicing. There's certain things that have to match up. Like, for instance, there was not enough blood at the table, for instance. And so she said, well, can we take the Fitbit, go to a judge, and take a look at the Fitbit information? Maybe that gives us
So, in other words, for her to have sliced her neck at the table, there would have been much more blood than they found.
Right.
Indicating she might have had her throat cut somewhere else and propped there. And so they figured the Fitbit could give some information as to
exactly some timing.
Yeah, what were they looking for?
So they were looking for a timing of the situation, which I think was, something that we don't think about. I mean, I think about it here. We do timing for support issues, but in this case, did the blood that dried was exactly at the time of what they anticipate when she was, killed herself, and it didn't work out that way. It would have.
Fitbit measures your heartbeat.
It does. But guess what it does? It also has a clock.
So it would show when the heart
stopped. It did. That's exactly what happened.
Really? Okay.
So basically, it had showed, this was now 5 p.m. ish, and it had showed that she didn't kill herself a half an hour ago, as it would have seemed to anybody who saw the evidence. It showed that her heart had stopped at 3:28 p.m.
So like an hour or two before
Almost
she was
2
found.
hours before she was
Okay.
found. And so that didn't match up to the coroner. The coroner was like, this doesn't work. This is not just a typical.
There'd be more blood.
There's
There
more
should be more
blood.
blood.
There
Okay.
would be. It would not be as dried if it just happened. There were just things that didn't work out. So the coroner called the police detective that had worked on the case, and they reopened it because, of course, it was originally noted as a suicide. And then they looked at things like the bashed wounds, because she was beaten a little bit, and that her hand, who had a clutched, flint kitchen knife with an 8-inch blade, just didn't seem like the plot. It seemed like there were more information. So they got the Fitbit information. They took a look at it, and they found out that she was, earlier. And then they started looking at neighbors' information because they weren't sure where they could find more information, but they started going to the neighbors. They said, well, if we have to investigate this, let's see if anybody knows in the neighborhood something that's going on. And they got to a neighbor across the street, and they had technology. They had the Ring.
The Ring,
Yep.
which takes the camera of your front porch.
That's right.
Front porch.
That's right.
So you can see who's on her front
You-
porch.
you can see
Let me
who's
guess, it was aimed at her house. At
It was
her
aimed.
driveway, at her garage, or whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
And so then they found right around the same time at 3:28, and this is the kind of sad part, that Karen's stepdad, Tony, which is
Tony.
not me, by the way. Listen,
okay, not-
I'm
okay,
first
all
of all,
right,
I'm this.
You're not old enough to be.
Thank you.
stepdad to a
Okay.
67-year-old
All right.
woman.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm out of the clear.
all right.
So detectives didn't come to Seattle. Nonetheless, Tony, the stepdad, had been at the house around that time. And now, by the way, once, the detective shared this with the mom, who was in her 90s, she was 92, and she was divorced from Tony. So they had, some things going on there, but they were still in good relation. The mom was totally not believing that this could be Tony, right? So they continued to look because, from family members, this is his daughter, right? And so stepdaughter, but still, he raised her for the most part. And so based on that, they found it was a gray car. Then they investigated the license. Then they looked at the type of car it was, and it came to
They
find
got
that
on the side of the Ring.
they basically got this out of the whole Ring
Just
video.
because he drove the car across the street in front of where the field of vision.
That's
for the
right.
Ring camera.
That's right. Now, normally they would have just, if they used the Ring, they would have said, oh, it's a gray car. That's all that was identified at the very beginning. But then once they said, hold on a second, we heard that Tony was at the house dropping off some food around that same time. And by the way, Tony's car is gray. They took that Ring video and took it to, one of their equipment that they can redo the video, and they drilled in and zoomed it out. Come to find out that it was the exact same type of car Tony had.
So Tony's car, the stepdad, they proved the car was there approximately the same time that she died.
Right. Now, the good and the bad. The bad is that the answer is it was Tony.
Yeah.
Okay. The bad is that the family never realized that it could ever be Tony. Even the 92-year-old mother was continuing to talk to Tony as he went to court and as they took him to jail. Tony was an Italian immigrant that came here, lived here most of his life, could barely speak English perfectly, but, ran his own business and stuff like that. He was brash, so he would fit that mold of... He's been around the block a few times. He could do this, but nobody had pictured that. So even as he went to jail, once he was prosecuted, Karen's mom, continued to call him in jail. The bad part about it is Tony died in jail. He was still fighting the video, saying that it wasn't his car. Yep, he's still protesting his innocence. But the reality is the cops told Tony this before he passed, and when he finally went to jail. Listen, in absence of where you were during this time, it shows, and you told us through your evidence that you were at the house right around the same time, whether you were dropping off a pizza, whatever you were doing. The Fitbit shows at that time that you were in the house, she died. And that's the scientific evidence that proves that you did this.
And got him convicted.
So,
Wow.
no winners in this story. But the one winner, if there was one, is how technology can be used in a scientific method with a chronological, with time, enabling us to drill in on what's the answer. Because think about it. Would you ever picture your stepdad being the one to murder you? And so if you're the stepdad and you actually did that, there's no way you would ever feel that you could be convicted from the standpoint of...
And then a 92-year-old man may not be familiar with technology and understand that as he's slicing the throat of his stepdaughter,
Right.
he should look down and see that she's wearing a Fitbit, not just a watch.
That's right.
And may not know what that was.
That's right.
He may not understand that contains the evidence that could convict him.
That's right. That's
or
right.
that the neighbors had a ring. Doorbell.
I mean, the one thing in this is, we don't want to give answers to, how to best, do a crime.
How to best kill someone.
I mean, now you're going to look for the Fitbit on the wrist. But
Right.
what it does tell you is the things that you're not looking for. The ring would have still tied him to this as they drilled in on that video. Mm-hmm. And so this is what I found, Kirby. I grew up as a juvenile. I got in trouble. What I found is you'll do things to get in trouble and you'll fight it all the way. But what somebody that does something to get in trouble doesn't realize is what else is out there watching this situation? Right. What am I not planning on that could come and haunt me? Yeah. And that's why we say don't have ghosts in the closet. It's best to not do those wrong things, because as most people that get prosecuted know, 100% of the time it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah.
Typically what happens is Tony probably, as brash as he had been bad to a lot of people. It usually leads up to things like this. Right. And for years he got away with it, and in this case didn't.
Well, it also shows you should wear a Fitbit, because it'll be your witness for you if something happens to you. Right. And make sure your neighbors have Ring.
That's right.
Because if all the neighbors have Ring, the neighborhood's covered.
That's right.
You got video surveillance the whole neighborhood just in case.
That's right. Absolutely.
So see, folks, there's a positive side to AI and all this new technology. You may think a Fitbit's silly, but in this case, a Fitbit put a killer in jail.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Look at it that way. Also, I gave you a whole mess of emails.
You did.
I've been getting, and have been out in general about your Hotmail account's been canceled unless you right away click on this and give us your information.
That's right.
And so on and so on. And it seems like there's been a whole stream of them.
That's right.
But the clue for me was their sloppy English. I mean, they're horrible English.
That's right.
And you've got some of them over there.
I do.
I
do.
It should be obvious. They must send them out. They must work with someone.
That's right. And they do, by the way. So this is...
Right. So please, people, listen to this. This is important, so you don't lose your whole system.
That's right.
Yes, Microsoft notifications from an email address that has nothing to do with Microsoft.
Absolutely.
And it has sloppy English, like it was written by somebody in Romania or Belarus.
That's right. That's right.
Or China.
That's right. That's right.
It was not written over here in Redmond, because in Redmond they know English.
That's right.
Watch for that.
So that's the key. We've been talking about cybersecurity most of this year, issues that come up, and this is a perfect example. Matter of fact, most companies, even our company, we, once a quarter we have to take that cybersecurity test and make sure that we don't forget about these things that we'll talk about right now. When you get an email where you don't know where it's coming from, don't click on any links. If the address, like Kirby, you're talking about here, in these examples, which they're coming from yrirving5@hotmail.com or...
Yeah, they sent it from Microsoft, but it's YR5.
That's right. But it says, mail alert, and it says MSN service, deactivation in process. I mean, these are trigger words that make people feel they have to do something. Right, they have to take action. And so
the account has to be done.
That's right.
We're about to close your account.
That's right.
Not responded. Respond right away to resume, to make sure service is continued.
And so what I even tell, my family, I tell, my friends, when I teach at the Seattle HDI, and we teach about cybersecurity. I say, when you get an email in today's world, by the way, there's nothing super urgent that you can't just delete the message. Because the reality is if somebody was going to delete an account or, deactivate something, they're going to call you. You're going to hear from it through a different environment. And if you do get an email related to that, it'll be way before the deactivation. They're just alarming you to be prepared. But you're going to know based on where the email address comes from.
And I think also the language.
And the language.
If you're above a 6th grade English level, you're going to pick this stuff up.
That's right.
I do sometimes reply to them, by the way.
You do?
I want to say, like, F you, do you think I'm stupid?
That's right.
Get better English.
That's right.
And I don't know if they read them or not, but I'll send them back because it's so bad. In fact, why don't you let me read one of them?
Yeah, that's right.
And just, this is, and I got like 6 of them in the past week.
That's right.
Like I'm on the second list. This is from Bally Sally Together at hotmail.co.uk.
Right.
Microsoft notification. You recently initiated an action on your Microsoft account on 9/22/2019 to shut down your Microsoft account. Did you initiate this action? Capital A, by the way.
Right.
If no, kindly cancel request below. Click below to cancel request to avoid service interruption. Will help you secure your account. Then there's the cancel request.
Yeah.
Notice, ignoring this message will cause your account to be terminated without your permission.
That's right.
Sloppy English.
Sloppy. That's right.
Yeah, my permission to terminate my account. And folks, this is designed to scare you. And it's signed, thanks, sincerely, Mail Protector.
Right.
Like they're protecting your mail.
That's right.
At 2019.
That's right.
But Bally Sally Together, no, the Mail Protector's name is not Bally.
That's right.
Not Sally, not Bally Sally.
That's right.
So just when you get these, and also, by the way, it was sent to, yeah, I got it.
You did.
Over to Hotmail.
That's right.
But it says it was sent to Telvin21 at iCloud.id.
That's right.
Who the hell is that?
That's
I mean, this is really obvious that this is phony, but some of you, I'm sure, fall for it. What's going to happen, you're going to click that cancel request saying, I don't want to lose my Hotmail.
Right.
And who knows what's going to creep in.
That's right. That's right. You know what we call this? A phishing attack.
P-H-I-S-H.
That's right. This is a phishing attack.
Let me see another one.
And,
I love these.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I
Let's
pride
let
myself on my English.
No, that's right.
This one is another mail alert sent on September 19th. The first one was September 20th. I didn't click, so they sent me another one.
That's right.
Mail alert. This is yrving5 at hotmail.com. Sent to user at hotmail.com.
Right.
Outlook Mail. We are closing all old version of our mailbox as from September 20th.
Right.
Now, if you got above the 5th grade in an American public school, you know there's something wrong with the sentence.
That's right.
We are closing all old version, not versions, version of our mailbox as from September 20th. Please follow the link below to update your account. Then it says upgrade now to the newest version. Warning, do not ignore, avoid email shutdown.
Right.
Do not avoid, ignore email shutdown.
Yeah, they want to scare
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Please do not reply to this message. I did, by the way.
That's right.
I said, F you, get better English. Mail sent to this address cannot be answered.
Yeah.
Well, folks, they're scaring you.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
taking immediate action. You click on that, you will regret it for the rest of
That's
your
right.
life.
And most people nowadays with applications, they don't scare people anymore because of this very reason.
Right.
But, a month ago we talked about in my family, my wife, she got that call.
Yep.
Well, in this example that you've got this week, these two examples, if you clicked on the link that's in there, somebody could do something just like taking over your computer.
That's right.
And then charging you $800 like my client in YouTube or what was it, gift cards.
Gift cards, right.
So that they could, iTunes, that's what it was, iTunes gift cards, so that they could control your computer.
And they'd let it go if you paid the rent.
They'd let it go, right. And then they let you in, and then they lock you out again. So
Right.
it's not a just one-time payment.
No.
They're using this as continual revenue.
That's right.
And so, no, absolutely. If you get a message like that, if you don't know, just like any type of training that you see, delete those messages. I mean, you could do that. You could reply and say F you, but no.
Listen, just Kirby, like I do reply.
That's right. That's
you
right.
don't have to do what I do. Just delete them. Because
Delete them,
it's
yeah.
an attempt to get into your system.
Absolutely.
You also get some, by the way, look legitimate. I used to have an account at Chase Bank.
Right. Oh.
I get accounts from Chase.com, supposedly Chase.com all the time, saying there's a problem with your account, or we need to update your information.
Right.
And they look very legitimate. Now, call the bank. Well,
Right.
just delete the email, call the bank, say, hey, have you sent out this email?
That's
banks
right.
Banks don't work that way.
That's right.
Second thing you do, you push the reply button and see what the reply email is, what the address is.
Right.
It'd be, Boris Yeltsin, John Putin at
.com.
hotmail.palace at the
At the
Kremlin.
ru dot
Right,
ru.
yeah. I mean, you'll find these emails that make absolutely no sense. Well, I get some of them like 25 letters long, letters and numbers, 56 YGC.
That's right.
Folks, those are phony accounts set up by people to get into your system. So
That's right.
please,
And these,
don't.
Kirby, these were actually bad examples, from people that are
Right.
phishing. But there are really good examples
good
that are
ones.
coming out here. So you got to pay attention. And I love what you said, which is call the bank. Just like,
Yeah.
my wife got that hack call and it was from the Comcast number, but she hung up and called that Comcast number and she talked to the real Comcast. So they're doing everything to disguise so that it looks exactly like what it is. So these are bad examples, but listen, audience, you may get better examples that look real.
That's right.
And you need to just be precautious. Worst case scenario, if any bank or any disconnect is going to happen, you delete that message. They're going to come back if it's a real message. They're going to call you. It's going to be more credible. But most importantly, you got to look for the fake stuff and just delete it and get rid of it.
Get rid of it. Talking Tech with Tony.
That's
Tony,
right.
thanks.
You're very
We'll
welcome,
be back
Kirby.
next week.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody, check out our podcast page. By the way, while you're there, subscribe. It's free. We do podcasts every day here on the Kirby Show and on John's show as well. We'd love for you to get them all. We cover really good stuff, especially when we talk tech with Tony, put it in layman's terms so you all
That's
can
right.
understand that new world out there. Thanks so much for listening. Boom. Done.
Boom.